Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into a massive, fundamental shift in the business world. We're going to talk about why the gap between truly understanding AI agents and just messing around with a basic chatbot is about to get very, very expensive for business leaders. A lot of people think they're crushing it with AI just because they can coax a decent answer out of a prompt. And hey, 6 months ago, that was enough. But it's just not enough anymore. The next frontier is AI agents. So we're going to break down exactly how they work, when to actually use them, and most importantly, how they scale your high-level executive judgment rather than just automating away your menial tasks. Right off the bat, there is a fundamental mental shift we need to make. A lot of folks still look at AI as this sort of, glorified search engine. But a chatbot and an agent, they are completely different beasts. A chatbot just sits there. It waits for your prompt and then it simply predicts the next word based on mathematical probabilities. But an agent actually figures out its next move all on its own. It decides the next action to take in the real world.
I absolutely love this analogy because it just hits the nail on the head. Think of standard prompting like sitting in the passenger seat next to a student driver. You've got to guide them, constantly correct them, and frankly, you're white-knuckling it on high alert the whole time so they don't crash the car, right? An agent, though, is like a hired driver. You literally just set the destination, hand over the keys, and kick back in the back seat. The agent handles the route, it deals with the traffic, and it makes all those micro decisions to get you where you need to go.
So here is our roadmap for today. We're covering 1, the AI paradigm shift, 2, identifying agentic tasks with the ARR framework, 3, the agent UDA loop, 4, delegating with GPS, and 5, scaling executive judgment. All right, let's jump straight into part 1, the AI paradigm shift, from search to action. Let's actually look under the hood for a second. On the left, you can see how a standard large language model, your basic chatbot, works. When you type a prompt, it breaks your words into little chunks called tokens, turns them into numbers, and then just guesses the most probable next word. Like, if you type, Jack fell down and broke his, the LLM has no concept of what a rhyme is or who Jack is. It just statistically knows that crown comes next. But over on the right, that's an agent. It puts that same language model in the brain's center, sure, but it wraps it with virtual operational workers that actually decide actions and execute complex, multi-step tasks. Which brings us to section 2, identifying agentic tasks using the ARR framework. Basically, what should you actually hand over? Because you definitely can't just hand over everything. You need a filter. Enter this brilliantly simple framework, ARR, autonomous, recurring, reviewable. If you're wondering if a task is right for an agent, just run it through this checklist. Is it something that can run autonomously without you constantly holding its hand? Is it a recurring thing, like a daily or weekly chore? And crucially, is the output easily reviewable? Meaning, can you just glance at the final product and know if it's right? If it hits all 3 of those ARR criteria, boom, hand it off to an agent. But if it needs your real-time subjective gut instinct or it's just a one-off project, stick to a manual prompt. This perfectly illustrates what happens when you do hand over one of those AR tasks. Let's say compiling your Monday morning sales brief. You're not just pinging one single bot. You're basically spinning up a mini team of 4 distinct workers. First, the analyst agent digs through all the weekly support tickets to find the trends. Then, the planner steps up to structure the brief and decide what's actually important. Next, the operator sits down and drafts the thing. And finally, the auditor reviews the logic to make sure it makes sense. All of this is happening entirely behind the scenes, just so you have a perfect brief waiting in your inbox at 7 a.m. Moving on to section 3, the agent UDA loop, adapting to reality. This is honestly where things get super fascinating. What happens when things go wrong? To understand why AI agents are such game changers here, we actually have to take a quick detour to the Korean War. Back in the 1970s, an Air Force colonel named John Boyd was studying this massive puzzle. American F-86 pilots were consistently beating Soviet MiGs. But here's the crazy part. The MiGs were faster, and they could fly higher. On paper, they absolutely should have won. But Boyd realized the American pilots won because their cockpits gave them better visibility. They could see more, which meant they could adapt faster and essentially outthink the enemy's decision-making process. Boyd called this process the OODA loop: observe, orient, decide, and act. And this exact cycle is the ultimate test of a true AI agent. When a rigid, pre-programmed script breaks, an agent doesn't just freeze up and flash an error code. No, it runs its own OODA loop. It observes that there's a problem,
It orients itself to the new reality of the situation, decides on a completely new path, and then acts on it.
Let's make this concrete by contrasting an autonomous agent with your traditional manual workflows. Imagine you've got a rigid automated workflow ordering your groceries every Friday. It's great, right up until your favorite brand of coffee is out of stock. The workflow just crashes. It's blindly obedient. But look at the autonomous agent on the right. It hits that out of stock barrier, observes the problem, and then actually checks your calendar to orient itself. It notices, oh hey, you've got 6 friends coming over for dinner on Saturday. So it finds appropriate substitutes, scales up the quantities, and completely rebuilds the order. A workflow strictly follows a process. An agent reroutes the entire trip to get you to your destination. Okay, section 4, delegating with GPS and the human bottleneck. If agents are really this smart, why are they still failing so spectacularly in so many businesses?
Well, here is the brutal truth, folks. Most AI problems are actually just human problems in disguise. An agent is a multiplier. It's not a magic wand. It acts as a mirror that confidently and rapidly amplifies whatever vague directions you give it. If you give an agent sloppy instructions with no real feedback loop, it's going to drive that car straight into a brick wall faster than you ever could. It absolutely does not fix bad thinking. It just formalizes it. So before you automate a single thing, you have to run what I call a GPS check. This is non-negotiable for delegation. G stands for goal. Can you clearly state the goal in one single sentence? P is for proof. Can you identify exactly what good looks like so the agent knows when it's succeeded? And S is for steps. Can you describe every single step of the process without any vague hand-waving? If you skip these 3 things, your agent is guaranteed to fail. Look at the massive, massive gap here between a sloppy instruction and a true GPS instruction. On the left, saying, summarize my emails every morning. I mean, that's just a recipe for disaster. But on the right, the GPS method. Read unread emails at 7 a.m., categorize them by urgency, draft routine replies, and flag absolutely anything from my top 5 customers. Mastering that gap, moving from vague wishes to hyper-specific directions, is exactly how you win this game. And, this whole principle of specificity, it applies on a macro level too. Everyone is chasing broad general intelligence, but narrow ownership is where the real value is right now. I recently watched a demo for some construction software, and it was brilliant. They built one single agent that solved exactly one incredibly specific, painful problem: collecting field data for a very specific type of user. It wasn't trying to be everything to everyone, but because it nailed this one recurring task that people universally hated doing, the whole room was practically fighting to scan the QR code to buy it. Narrow focus beats broad intelligence every single time.
Finally, let's wrap up with section 5, scaling executive judgment, the big macro shift. This is where it all comes together. Because this right here is the true superpower of AI agents. They are not just here to do your digital laundry. They are here to scale your executive judgment. Think about it. For all of modern history, your income has been tightly chained to your hours. Even if you're a top-tier executive, you're ultimately trading your time to make decisions. But AI is a decoupling machine. It finally breaks that chain. The agents handle the mechanical work, the endless drafting, the baseline analysis, which frees you up to scale your high-level judgment over all of it.
So, if you take away nothing else today, remember this. We are stepping into a world where agents make content, code, and analysis practically free. And when output becomes infinite, human taste becomes incredibly scarce. Your standards, your ability to use that GPS framework to define exactly what good looks like, your sheer skill at spotting excellence, that becomes immensely valuable. When raw intelligence gets cheap, your human executive judgment becomes the most expensive commodity on the market.
AI is not going to replace the things that make you uniquely irreplaceable, but it is absolutely demanding that you evolve. You have to move away from just doing the repetitive work and step up to defining it. You have to learn when to trust the agent and when to trust a human. It's an unbelievable opportunity, but it leaves all of us with a real choice to make. The disruption is already here. The roles are shifting as we speak. So will you actively learn to shape this shift, use these agents to scale your judgment and set the new standard, or are you just going to sit back and get shaped by it?